We've never had a garden before. This is the first time we've had a garden. I love my olive trees, but I'm very lucky to get them to grow in England because it's cold. When we come here, there was all tumps of rubbish on here, and there was 150 tonne of sandstone, but my husband had to pay to have the sandstone taken away, and we've cleaned all the rubbish off, pay a lot of money to the tips, and then we've put some stones down, planted more trees, and now it's made it a home that we've never had before. And this is my beautiful dog, Chocolate, and she's a part of the family. And we got water, we got electricity, and we got toilets. And that's what other people takes for granted. It's a luxury to us. People don't understand when you do be out water so much. Now we've got taps, what we've never had in our life. You start to save water, you'd never waste water. All my washing up water, I recycle. Just a little water for the olive tree, you don't like too much. Just a little. Because I can't fit my washer and my dryer in the building, and I have to have it in here. So I've got my washer and my dryer. And before I had the building, I used to do all my cooking in here. See, that was before, but now I cook in the building. It's okay to cook in here in the summer, but very cold in the winter. And time you make the food in here and you walk back with it, it's half cold. Because over the planning rules, we can only have 3 caravans on here, free. So my 2 married sons, they have their caravans out there, and then in here, me and my husband has the bedroom, and my single son sleeps here. It's very difficult because we got no privacy, because he's a young man, 24-year-old, and he wants his own little caravan, but we can only have 3 caravans on here.
Right, Johanna, your planning permission expires in August. We need to be thinking about getting a renewal. There's certain things we need to do before we go to that stage. I'd like to ask you first, have you made any attempts to find a different site? Have you looked at any other sites? Can we demonstrate that you've been seeking a site elsewhere?
Yes, I have been driving around, and my husband's been going around the different sites, but all the sites would say in a 15-18 mile area is all full up, and there's a waiting list.
But what about sites that might be on the market, you know, bits of land? Yeah.
Well, I've been looking for land. The only land what comes up is for building. I've been around all the estate agents in Uttoxeter.
Okay, that's good. As long as you've done something, we can put that into your application. The other thing we need to be talking about is how you're getting on with your neighbours. Can we get letters of support from your neighbours? Because last time we had a fair bit of letters of opposition. We want to reduce that if we can and get more letters of support. You think we're going to be able to do that?
Well, I think so, because there's a few people I've got to know from the nursery, taking the children to the nursery, and then my little granddaughter goes to school, so I've got to know a few people from there. but mainly the letters of support what I've got is out of the village.
Yeah,
And people is willing to give me letters of support. Siobhan, would you like to read this letter out? Because,
I will.
you know, I'm stopping and
Have you
going.
got your spare glasses?
Oh, yes.
We're poverty with glasses, aren't we?
We're always swapping glasses
We're all
over.
swapping glasses. We're lucky if we've got a pair of glasses between the five of us.
And some letters is like real educational, like they are telling the planning what to do. And then some letters is just showing a little kindness towards us, which goes a long way, which has helped us a long way and restored our faith in people.
We have lived at the above address now for 7 years and we are applying for planning permission again, as we have looked for other land but can't find any to suit our purpose. We would very much like to remain here as our base and to keep the children in school, and would ask that you sign and date this letter to show your support to us. If you would like to undertake a letter of support for our site, we will be very grateful. Yours sincerely, David and Johanna Price. And this lady's book, we can see no problem and are happy to see land being looked after, kept tidy, and people who have joined the local village with no problem to anyone.
Let's say that.
Oh no, because that's what somebody
Yeah,
put in the
here it
letter to
is.
council.
This is the one.
You could put a blip. Yeah.
I just gentleman who I know, we know him very well, and he visits us now and again, and he always comes Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, and he just spends about 10 minutes with us, but he's really mad thinking that we've got to fight the planning again, so he's put on the letter, as you can see.
So we need to be, on those three fronts, we need to be looking to do a bit more work before we put your application in over the next 2 or 3 weeks. The aim must be to get your application in August, because I think your permission expires in September.
In September, yeah. Yes.
We'll not get a decision by September, well, that's no bad thing. It won't matter taking a few weeks longer. And hopefully we'll get a better decision this time and get you a longer period of consent, if not a permanent one. Because it's going to be a hassle to keep applying every 3 years.
Yes, it is.
So that's where we'll go.
Yeah.
It's going to cost you a bit of money, obviously. Going to be planning fees to pay, so we need to be thinking about that.
To get gypsy status for planning, you've got to prove that you're actively seeking work, and this is where, so you've actually got to seek work. It can't be arranged. In the past with crops and things like that, it was arranged, pre-arranged, but if you say like rang down to somewhere, let's say down to Sussex, and say I'm wanted to come down to do some work, they'll look at that as pre-arranged. So you've got to be mobile and looking for work. It's crazy.
That's like my
That's crazy.
Yeah. Like my husband does. In the summer, he'll travel up to Scotland, and he goes out looking for work. When he gets there, the work is not there phoning in. He goes up there and looks for it, don't you?
Yeah.
It's just making things more difficult all the time for the Royaume-Uni gypsies, because if they can't go out and look for work, how do they expect to get work?
Like it's the same thing now when the lads is going scrapping. You know, they go to wherever they go and collect the scrap, and now you've got to show a birth certificate or a bank statement or a water bill or anything like that before they give you a cheque. Now, you know, passport and things like that. I wouldn't say after gypsies, but a lot of gypsies has got no anything at all, because if you're stopping on the side of the road, how have you got to have a water bill or things like that? You know, you can't show what you haven't got, but they won't accept that. They say, well, you've got to have a form of ID before we give you this cheque.
Yeah.
You know, and that, I think that's it, the gypsies more than anything.
And it's just like a round circle of problems, because to get when you take your scrap in and you get paid for it, you get a cheque. You got to put your cheque into a bank account to change your cheque. How can you open a bank account if you haven't got a permanent address? They won't let you open a bank account. So to open a bank account, you need 3 forms of ID, 2 which has got to have your address on. So how can you open a bank account? So it's just more problems for the Royaume-Uni people. And like my husband, he's not on the scrap, he's not collecting scrap, but I know a lot of people who's suffering very badly over it. The council don't understand how much problem this is going to cause for their own self. Never mind like for our people.
It's quite complicated, the whole facets of gypsy planning. And each district, each borough, they're supposed to do what's called a Gypsy Traveller Accommodation Needs Assessment. And that assessment gives so many pitch numbers, so many sites what a council should provide. But it's not watertight on how they get that evidence. In 1960 there was a change in the law which said if you ran a campsite, if you had anybody stopping on your land, you'd got to have the proper facilities and you'd got to have a caravan sites licence. So straight away in the 60s, because there was a lot of problems in England in the 60s, straight away a lot of people who did have places, they used to go on the back of the farms and there'd be a little bit of a road trip thing. All those people was up-tippled onto the road, and it looked like all of a sudden there'd been an increase of gypsy families, but there hadn't. It was just that they was up-tippled off these traditional places that people had always stopped on.
That's the old caravans what we used to live in, going back about 3 generations. But there's still people living in them today. Certain times of the year they bring them out from storage and they have fires outside and cook outside, living the old traditional way.
And this myth that people was travelling all the time, 52 weeks of the year. People would have a winter yard somewhere, and some of these farmers say, well, you can pull on the back of my place for the winter, and they might do a few jobs and things like that. We see all that's gone, and because we've got this ridiculous formula now in law, which was brought about by people who weren't gypsy people, who took this case. I think it's a very bad case for gypsy people in case law, was this where it found that to be determined a gypsy or traveller person, you've got to be travelling up and down for the purposes of work. It comes from case law, Gibbs case law.
Now, when you go on the road, you're moving every single day. The authorities is moving you every day, and it's impossible to move every day, because how can someone go to work if they're moving every day? Where's the money coming from to feed the children? If the men's not working, how can they feed the children? How can they put petrol in their motor? How can they pay for gas? I know one Royaume-Uni family who's moving up and down, who's on the road, and they're going through terrible hardships. No one knows how much they suffer over moving all the time. They can't get doctors. They can't get settled address. It's very difficult for them to get their letters if they have any mail from anything. So it's not very easy.
And it's very strange how the law has ended up working out over gypsy status in England, because they view each case very individually and they look at how you live and what you do.
When we started speaking about the planning, David's got up, look, and he's walked out because he's so mivid and he's so upset about it. And when Siobhan's talking about the rules and the regulations, he can't take it.
No, everybody switches off.
He just walks away from it because
people just switch off. Yeah.
When the election come up here the last time, a few years ago, there was one MP in the area and his leaflets, what was delivered around, it said in them that he was against gypsy planning, didn't they? And that is against the law. They're not supposed to put that, but it was in his leaflets, and he said that he was going to fight against making gypsy sites.
You've illustrated it very well there, Johanna, because probably on the ticket it would have said he's against gypsy sites, but it will have had the small g, not the capital G, and this is where we get the covert racism, because now if he'd have put it with a capital G and he meant gypsy people, Romany gypsy people, he could have been brought to book for racism.
When you're born a Romany gypsy, it's not something what we've choose. We're born a Romany gypsy, and we can go back generation and generation, and in our breed, the Lee family and the Price family, sometimes the younger generation is marrying out a little bit, but going back breed, there was all pure gypsies, pure Romany gypsies. There was no one who was married out into the house-dwelling community. Made us all a coffee. My husband's got to be served first. Tradition among the Romany people, he must have eaten first. See, he'd be very upset if he didn't get it first. That's tradition. Now I can serve everyone else out.
How come I had my cake last then?
Romany gypsies is not dirty people. As you can see, we like to keep everything clean. We have different dishes, different cloths for everything we do. Our tea towels, they never be washed in a washing machine. They can only be hand done in the sink. Nothing goes in that bowl, only my knives and forks, plates, cups, what we eat and drink off. Nothing else is allowed to go in there. Our people, the Romany gypsies, we're very old-fashioned people. And we do live about 50 or 60 years in the past. We teach our young people and our children to stick to all the traditions. We don't like losing the traditions. We don't like losing the Romany language. We speak to our children in English and in Romany, and then they learn the two languages. When someone's passed away in our family, the night before they're buried, we believe in sitting up with the dead. So it's our way of respect for the family. So if someone's passed away, say if I had a auntie who passed away, now me and David and our boys will take a small caravan and we'll go to where this person's passed away, and then the night before they're buried, we sit up all night. We don't go to bed, so that's how we need to have a little caravan there, and then we help out a bit, because the people who's sitting up, there'll be two different groups. All the men will be together, they'll be outside, they'll have a fire outside and they stay around the fire, and then the women will be inside the caravans, and it's the women's duty to make tea and food all night, so the men will be fed and the children will go to bed, or if there's someone really old, the old person may go to bed, because the old ones like to keep up with the tradition. They don't like to go to bed, but the younger generation will try and coax them into bed. Some people think we're silly, but just try to survive, and we've survived for hundreds of years, and our tradition has not gone, and I'm sure it'll survive on into the future. We all like fancy cups, very fancy. Nice china.
Those my knives, I love them knives, you know, so what goes on to boot sales for them. the same
These
traditions.
knives is traditional
Use
in the
quite
family.
same, religion
All Romani
or-
people have black bladed knife, very sharp. Cut the home cured bacon, cut the bread.
Absolutely.
All have tradition knives.
Yeah.
David, go and fetch your peg knife. David, and bring the little basket off the wooden shed. What Stevie made.
This is a Davy Crockett basket, as we call it, and we used to sell these. The old people used to sell these. This is a peg knife that I've made, and we make flowers and pegs with these. The old men used to cross their legs, get a helder stick, and he'd used to sit and make the flowers. You don't move the knife to make the flowers, you leave the knife still and you turn the stick and you make the flowers like that. And then that would be a peg knife as well. Well, we call them a peg knife, it's just an old blade stuck in a piece of wood really. But it's a peg knife, and these have got to be razor sharp, so when we go down the woods we'd cut the sticks and then make the pegs with them. And make them, yeah.
There's a lot, these last couple of years, there's a lot of Roma people come into England, ain't they? And they live a different way of life, what we live. Because the Romas, they all live in houses. And like the English gypsies, the Romani gypsies, some of them lives in houses in England, but there's not a lot of the houses.
On the whole, people still like that.
It's not because they want to live in houses, because there's nowhere for them to go. And that's why sometimes they go into houses, because probably they might have some disabled children in the family, or they might have sick old people what they got to look after. They can't keep moving up and down all the time. So half of the time we're sort of pushed into houses, not because we want to go. When the Romani gypsies do go into a house, they're not happy in there, they're not settled, because all they want to do is get in the caravan. They can't wait till the winter's over until they can get in the caravan and travel. So all they want to do is move back into the caravans. Some people say to us, it's a lovely way of life to be a close-knitted family. But it's not always nice, because our people, we can't survive without one another.
The Romani gypsies, they've never been to a school.
Oh,
They've never been to a school and said, this how you treat this horse, this how you breed this horse. They just know how to breed good horses from bad horses, and you know, they just know that, don't they? You know, it's just a thing that they know. And like, I know a man now who's breeding horses, and now they like the little tiny horses, which is a long time ago they like the big horses to pull the character wagons. And now like they've gone down a step now, they're just up and down with a lead, and that's the horses that they breed now, is the small horses, not the big, heavy, you know, big horses type of thing. And it's amazing how they brought it from there down to there, which is to that. But it's still the same horse, if you know what I mean. It's still got all the feather on it and all the bone and all the hair, but it's come down.
People can understand our language, but we do try to speak as plain as we can. But when you've never had a school education, it makes your English language not be as well as the settled community.
Well, when we went with Siobhan a few years back to the Houses of Parliament, and everybody was talking in there, and I was sat in the corner, and I didn't understand the word they was on about. But they were speaking plain English, but the way they was talking, I just...
It ain't just gypsy people that struggle with the sort of language that they use in Parliament, or the way they wrap things up. You know, all of a sudden you see people's eyes switch off and think, oh, what do you mean by that, you know? So it's a nice little, clever little trick we've got, really.
These is the little bits what I'm putting together. This is just to show we've been travelling this year. That's when we went to the Royal Welsh, Bilf Wells.
Of course.
Yeah, because that's your entrance fee when you pay when you're going in at the gate. But I've got a lot more stuff about the travelling this year and about when David's been away working and. We might even get no permission at all. We might have to leave here because I know it has happened to other people. And can you just imagine how that is, living with that every day, not knowing that you might be put off here, you might have to take this building down. And we've been married for 36 years and everything that we've had has gone into this. So if we've got to move off here, we're back from scratch again, with nothing. This is my beautiful Roman Catholic church, where I have had full support from my parish and full support from my priest.
I'm a free-born man of the travelling people, got no fixed abode, with nomads I am numbered. Country lanes and byways were always my ways. I've never fancied being numbered. Well, we knew the woods and the resting places, and the small birds sang when winter time was over. Then we'd pack our load and be on the road. They were good old times for the rover.
It's nice, thank you for stopping and speaking to me because that's really important. Thank you for showing me quickly. Yes, of course. Yeah, see you bye. Yeah, bye. We have to be screened because the council said we'd be seen too much from the road. So we put a fence up and then we put trees up to try and give us more screening. But I don't know, because lots of people, if we're having visitors coming, it takes a while before they can find us. When my husband was not very well, he had chest pains and we sent for the ambulance. The ambulance went to pass 3 times. We could see the sirens, but the ambulance couldn't find where we were. I know they will survive, but it'd be nice for them to survive with reading and writing, a bit of food coming in, a settled home for them to put their head down, not thinking that the police is going to come 11 o'clock in the night and make them move on. And then things do happen. That's what we're looking for. Somewhere for the children, somewhere for the old people, somewhere for people to live.